A 12-inch wooden plank bolted to a sheer vertical rock face, 2,000 feet of empty, unforgiving air directly beneath your boots. One misplaced step and gravity takes over entirely. A flooded dirt road in the remote outback. Your truck engine sputters and dies. As the murky water rises against the doors, a saltwater crocodile, weighing over 1,000 pounds, glides silently past the windshield, waiting for you to step outside. A human figure reduced to a meaningless speck against an 80-foot wall of moving ocean. Water traveling at highway speeds, carrying enough kinetic energy to crush bone and steel like paper. An isolated stretch of lush jungle cordoned off by the military. A place where the venom is so highly evolved it melts human tissue, and simply stepping off a boat onto the sand is a federal crime. These are not computer-generated movie sets. This is our planet. These are brutal, unforgiving environments where a single lapse in judgment or a split second of hesitation becomes the last mistake you will ever make. Forget the luxury resorts, the safe guided tours, and the polished vacation brochures. Welcome to the 25 most dangerous places on Earth. We are going to examine the extreme corners of the globe that actively test the absolute limits of human survival. Locations that stand as a permanent harsh reminder that despite all our engineering and technology, mankind is not always in control. Huashan Plank Walk, China. Imagine standing over 7,000 feet in the air. Beneath your boots is not a solid hiking trail, but a sheer, vertical drop into an unforgiving abyss. This is Mount Hua in China, home to what is universally recognized as the most dangerous pedestrian path on the planet. There are no safety nets, and there are no paved walkways. You are navigating a crude ledge made of aging wooden boards that are barely 12 inches wide. These wooden planks are bolted directly into the side of a massive vertical granite cliff face. To get across, you must move sideways, pressing your chest tight against the cold stone while gripping heavy iron chains that have been hammered straight into the rock. The weather at this altitude is a constant enemy. Mountain crosswinds do not just blow, they violently batter against the cliff, constantly threatening to rip your grip away and throw you completely off balance. You are tethered by a single carabiner attached to a wire cable. If that hardware fails, or if your boot slips on the weather-worn wood, there is no second chance and no rescue operation. You face a free fall of more than a mile straight down before hitting the valley floor. What makes this structure truly baffling is the engineering history behind it. 7 centuries ago, this was not a tourist attraction. Taoist hermits seeking absolute isolation built this route by hand. Without modern tools, they drove iron spikes deep into the vertical rock, laying narrow wooden planks across them to create an extreme path where no invading army or ordinary traveler would dare to follow. They risked their lives building a deadly one-way road into the clouds just to find absolute silence. Today, that silence is entirely gone. Despite the lethal drop and the terrifying reality of the terrain, thousands of people travel here every single year. Because the path is a dead-end, traffic jams form in mid-air. You have to carefully unclip and maneuver around strangers coming in the opposite direction, leaning out over the void, with only a few inches of wood under your feet. It is a bizarre psychological paradox. Modern humans deliberately queue up for hours to place themselves in a situation where survival hangs by a rusted chain, simply to look a fatal drop in the eye and see if they have the nerve to walk away. Cahill's Crossing, Australia. Leave the dizzying heights of the Chinese cliffs behind and drop straight down into the sweltering, muddy outback of Australia. In the remote Northern Territory lies a notorious stretch of concrete known as Cahill's Crossing. It is a shallow intersection over the East Alligator River, but calling it a road is a fatal understatement. This is a brutal clash between human infrastructure and prehistoric predators. During the wet season and high tides, the water level over this crossing surges by more than 6 feet in a matter of minutes. The tidal current alone is incredibly violent, but the rushing water is not the primary threat. Hidden just beneath the murky brown surface is the highest density of saltwater crocodiles anywhere on the planet. We are talking about apex predators that easily grow over 17 feet long and weigh well over 1,000 pounds. They are heavily armored stealth machines, equipped with a bite force capable of crushing a car door. They gather at this exact crossing because the submerged concrete acts as a man-made dam. When the tide pushes upstream, thousands of fish are funneled directly over the edge of the road. It creates a highly efficient feeding ground. The crocodiles do not even have to hunt. They simply line up against the flow of the water, open their massive jaws, and let the river current deliver the food right to them. Yet this is still an active public route. Every single day, drivers in heavy four-wheel drive trucks look at a raging river infested with dozens of giant reptiles and still decide to step on the gas pedal. The muddy water completely hides the drop-off at the edge of the concrete path. If a driver miscalculates the strength of the current, or if the engine swallows water and stalls, the vehicle instantly becomes a sunken trap. Dozens of heavy trucks are swept off this crossing and into the deep river every year. If your engine dies out there, you are not calling for a tow truck. You are stranded in the middle of a flooding river, completely surrounded by 1,000-pound predators, patiently waiting for you to open your door and step outside. At Cahill's Crossing, nature does not negotiate with off-road vehicles. It simply waits for the driver to make a mistake. Hanoi Train Street, Vietnam. Forget the wild outback. The next danger zone is hidden right in the middle of a densely populated urban center. This is Train Street in Hanoi, Vietnam, where heavy industrial rail machinery cuts directly through a crowded residential neighborhood. This is not a designated train station or an industrial zone. It is a living, breathing neighborhood where the front doors of the houses are built less than 16 inches from an active heavy-gauge railway track. When the trains roll through, they do not slow down for pedestrians. Massive multi-ton steel locomotives roar through this impossibly narrow corridor at speeds approaching 25 miles per hour. The gap between the moving metal carriages and the concrete walls of the homes is so incredibly tight that a person standing against the wall must flatten themselves completely just to avoid being crushed. What makes this place truly astonishing is the casual human exposure. This is not an abandoned track. People live here. Residents set up small plastic tables on the tracks to drink coffee, wash their dishes, and let their children play right on the wooden railway ties. They do not have warning gates or electronic barriers. They operate purely on memory and train schedules. About 5 minutes before a heavy cargo train arrives, a chaotic synchronized drill begins. Shop owners blow whistles, shout warnings, grab their chairs, and pull tourists back against the walls. It is a frantic race to clear the tracks. Then, the train screams past, deafeningly loud and vibrating the very foundations of the houses. You can feel the heat radiating off the steel engines. If you lean forward by even a fraction of an inch, the impact would be catastrophic. Yet, the very second the last carriage clears the street, the chairs are placed right back onto the tracks, and normal life resumes as if nothing happened. It is a daily game of urban roulette played out inches from disaster. Kawah Ijen, Indonesia. Now we trade the hazards of urban infrastructure for the lethal chemistry of the Earth itself. High in the volcanic peaks of East Java, Indonesia, lies Kawah Ijen. From a distance, the crater holds a perfectly still, brilliant turquoise lake. It looks serene, almost inviting, but that vibrant blue color is a warning sign. This is not water. It is the largest highly concentrated sulfuric acid lake in the world, with a pH level hovering near 0. If you fell in, the acid would dissolve human flesh and bone in a matter of minutes. The danger at Kawah Ijen is not just in the lake, it is in the air you breathe. The volcano constantly vents highly pressurized sulfur gas from deep within the Earth's crust. When this superheated gas hits the oxygen in the outside air, it instantly ignites, creating towering spectral blue flames that can reach 16 feet high. These blue fires burn at temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It is a mesmerizing alien landscape, but the toxic fumes pouring from these vents are thick enough to sear your lungs and cause permanent respiratory damage. Yet this toxic hellscape is also an active industrial mining site. Every day, local miners make the brutal descent into the crater. They do not use heavy machinery or protective hazmat suits. They tie simple damp cloths around their faces to block the choking sulfur gas and use iron metal rods to break off solid chunks of bright yellow sulfur rock. These men load up to 200 pounds of raw sulfur into bamboo baskets and carry that crushing weight on their bare shoulders. They then must hike back up the steep, rocky crater wall, navigating treacherous, uneven footing while inhaling poisonous fumes. They perform this agonizing, lung-burning labor multiple times a day, all for a payout that averages roughly $12 US. At Kawah Ijen, the stunning otherworldly beauty of the blue fire and the acidic lake masks a grueling, slow-motion death sentence for the men who try to extract its resources. Nazaré, Portugal. From the acidic peaks of Indonesia, we move to the raw, unbridled kinetic energy of the Atlantic Ocean. Off the coast of a small fishing village in Portugal lies Nazaré, home to the most terrifying and massive waves ever recorded on the planet. Here, the ocean does not just roll into shore. It explodes upward, creating towering walls of water that regularly exceed 80 feet in height. That is a moving, collapsing wall of water the size of an 8-story office building. The mechanism driving these monsters is hidden deep underwater. Just offshore lies the Nazaré Canyon, a massive submarine trench that plunges over 16,000 feet deep and stretches for more than 140 miles. As powerful Atlantic swells travel across the open ocean, they are funneled directly into this deep, narrow canyon. The sudden change in depth compresses the massive volume of water, violently forcing all that kinetic energy upward just as it reaches the shoreline. The result is a mechanical amplification of wave energy that defies imagination. Water moving at these speeds and volumes is no longer fluid. It hits with the density and force of solid concrete. If a surfer is caught inside the impact zone of an 80-foot wave, they are instantly subjected to crushing pressure. The sheer weight of the collapsing water can hold a person submerged in a turbulent, violent spin cycle for over a minute deep below the surface in darkness. Yet professional big-wave surfers deliberately travel to Nazaré to hunt these aquatic leviathans. They cannot paddle into waves this fast. They have to be towed into the drop zone by high-powered jet skis. The surfer becomes a meaningless, tiny speck racing down the face of a collapsing skyscraper made of water. Speeds on the board can reach 50 miles per hour. If they lose their balance, the wipeout is catastrophic. Rescue teams on jet skis must operate within a microscopic window of time, darting into the white water to pull the surfer out before the next massive set of waves detonates. At Nazaré, human beings are willingly stepping into the impact zone of the ocean's most destructive engine. Mad Honey Cliffs, Nepal. Leaving the ocean, we ascend into the thin, cold air of the Himalayas. Deep in the remote, jagged valleys of Nepal, local villagers face a very different kind of vertical threat. These are the Mad Honey Cliffs. Here, men risk their lives not for extreme sports or tourist photos, but to harvest a rare, highly potent substance heavily guarded by nature. The prize is a specific type of honey produced by the Himalayan giant honeybee, the largest bee species in the world. These bees build massive crescent-shaped hives, sometimes reaching 3 feet across, attaching them directly to the undersides of sheer, overhanging rock faces. To reach these hives, the Gurung honey hunters must descend vertical cliffs that drop hundreds of feet into the gorge below. Their equipment is terrifyingly basic. They use fragile hand-woven rope ladders made from braided bamboo. There are no modern climbing harnesses, no carabiners, and no safety nets. The hunters are suspended in open air, swinging freely as mountain winds batter against the cliff face. While balancing on these thin ropes, they must endure the choking thick smoke from fires built below, meant to sedate the massive bees. But the bees still attack, and a single sting can trigger intense pain or panic, testing a hunter's grip on the ropes. The true danger, however, lies in the honey itself. In the spring, the bees feed on the nectar of specific high-altitude rhododendron flowers. This nectar contains gynotoxin, a powerful neurotoxin. When concentrated in the honey, it becomes a strong hallucinogen. Consuming just a small amount too much can cause severe muscle paralysis, violent vomiting, irregular heart rhythms, and even death. The hunters are risking a fatal fall to extract a highly toxic substance. Yet, this mad honey commands an extremely high price on the black market for its perceived medicinal and psychoactive properties. The harvest is a grueling ancient tradition where survival depends entirely on the strength of a bamboo rope and a steady nerve in the face of thousands of venomous insects. Chantang River, China. Next, we examine a river that behaves more like an attacking army than a body of water. The Qiantang River in eastern China is home to the largest and most destructive tidal bore on Earth. This is not a standard, predictable ocean wave. It is a massive concentrated surge of tidal energy, locally known as the Silver Dragon. The danger is driven by the unique geometry of the river's estuary. The wide mouth of Hangzhou Bay acts like a massive funnel, rapidly narrowing as it moves inland. When the incoming tide from the East China Sea pushes into this narrowing channel, the water has nowhere to go but up. It compresses and accelerates, forming a solid roaring wall of water that can reach 30 feet high. This violent surge moves upstream against the river's natural current at terrifying speeds, often exceeding 25 miles per hour. The sheer mass and velocity of the water generate a deafening roar that can be heard long before the wave is seen. When the bore strikes the engineered seawalls, the impact is explosive, launching thousands of tons of water high into the air and crushing anything caught near the banks. For centuries, this tidal bore was seen as a destructive force to be feared and managed with heavy stone dikes. Yet today, it draws crowds of spectators and incredibly elite surfers who attempt to ride the unpredictable sediment-heavy surge for miles upstream. Riding the Silver Dragon means navigating a chaotic, churning mass of water that violently tears apart the very concept of a calm river. Chernobyl Exclusion Zone, Ukraine. We now shift from the raw, visible power of nature to a silent, invisible threat created entirely by human failure. The Chernobyl Exclusion Zone in northern Ukraine is a sprawling 1,000-square-mile monument to the most catastrophic nuclear disaster in history. In 1986, the explosion of reactor number 4 released massive quantities of radioactive material into the atmosphere, forcing the sudden permanent evacuation of hundreds of thousands of people. The immediate danger here is not a sheer drop or a crushing wave. It is radiation, an enemy you cannot see, hear, or feel. When walking through the zone, survival depends entirely on the clicking sounds of a handheld dosimeter. The radiation levels are highly erratic. You can walk down a paved road that registers as relatively safe, but if you step just a few inches off the path, into the soil or moss, the radiation readings can spike to lethal levels. Invisible, highly radioactive particles remain embedded in the dirt, the rust of abandoned vehicles, and the structures themselves. The eerie atmosphere of the exclusion zone is overwhelming. Entire cities, like Pripyat, stand frozen in time. Concrete apartment blocks are slowly crumbling, their windows blown out and their interiors stripped bare. The iconic rusting Ferris wheel stands motionless, a haunting symbol of a city that died overnight. Nature is aggressively reclaiming the urban decay. Trees grow through the floors of abandoned schools, and vines wrap around rusted hospital beds. This area is a stark reminder of the long-term consequences of technological hubris. The highly contaminated red forest, where pine trees absorbed massive doses of radiation and died, remains one of the most toxic areas on Earth. The radioactive isotopes buried in this soil, such as plutonium-239, have half-lives of tens of thousands of years. The Chernobyl exclusion zone proves that human error can create an environment so permanently toxic that nature itself becomes weaponized against our return. Fairy Meadows Road, Pakistan. Leaving the radioactive ruins behind, we move to a danger that requires active, nerve-wracking navigation. Carved roughly into the steep, unstable cliffs of the Himalayas in Pakistan, the Fairy Meadows Road is widely considered one of the most terrifying driving routes on the planet. This is not a paved highway. It is a crude, crumbling dirt track, barely wide enough for a single standard vehicle. The road ascends rapidly, climbing to elevations over 10,000 feet. As you drive, the tires of your vehicle roll precariously close to an unprotected edge. There are no guardrails, no concrete barriers, and no safety nets. On one side is a sheer, jagged rock face. On the other, a vertical drop that plunges thousands of feet straight down into a rocky river gorge. The geography here is highly volatile. The region is prone to frequent seismic activity, and the road itself is carved from loose, unstable gravel and rock. Sudden landslides and falling boulders are a constant threat, capable of sweeping a vehicle off the ledge without warning. In several sections, the path is so narrow and the turns so sharp that drivers must carefully reverse and inch forward multiple times just to navigate a single hairpin bend. The tension is constant. Drivers must manage the risk of overheating brakes on the steep descents, knowing that a single mechanical failure or a split-second lapse in concentration guarantees a fatal freefall. Yet this terrifying route is the only viable access point to the base camp of Nanga Parbat, the 9th highest mountain in the world, famously known as the Killer Mountain. The Fairy Meadows Road is a grueling test of driving skill and psychological endurance, where the path to unimaginable beauty is paved with unrelenting danger. Komodo Island, Indonesia. From the perilous mountain roads, we travel to an isolated island in the Indonesian archipelago, where the danger is not the terrain, but the apex predator that rules it. Komodo Island is a harsh, dry, volcanic landscape that serves as the exclusive domain of the Komodo dragon, the largest and heaviest living lizard on Earth. This is a prehistoric killing machine, perfectly adapted to its unforgiving environment. Adult males can grow over 10 feet long and weigh more than 200 pounds. They are armed with heavily armored, scale-covered skin and jaws lined with dozens of serrated teeth, designed specifically to rip and tear through flesh like a shark. The Komodo dragon is an ambush predator. Despite its massive size, it can lie perfectly still for hours, camouflaged against the dusty terrain, waiting for prey to wander within striking distance. When they attack, they can accelerate with shocking, explosive speed. Their hunting strategy is brutal and efficient. They do not necessarily need to kill a large animal like a water buffalo outright. Their bite delivers a highly toxic venom that rapidly lowers blood pressure and induces severe shock, while simultaneously introducing a cocktail of bacteria into the wound. The prey weakens and slowly dies over several days, while the dragon patiently tracks it by scent. Human encounters are rare but highly dangerous. The dragons possess an incredibly keen sense of smell, capable of detecting the scent of blood or decaying flesh from miles away. Visitors to the island are strictly forbidden from trekking alone and must be accompanied by experienced rangers armed only with long wooden sticks for defense. On Komodo Island, humans are acutely aware that they have stepped onto a landmass where they are no longer at the top of the food chain. Oymyakon, Russia. We now shift from the threat of predators to the extreme limits of human physiological endurance. Deep in the Siberian tundra lies Oymyakon, Russia, recognized as the coldest permanently inhabited settlement on Earth. Here, the danger is the absolute crushing freeze. Winter temperatures routinely plummet below -60 degrees Fahrenheit, with historical records dipping even lower. At these temperatures, the cold becomes a physical entity that aggressively attacks the human body. Moisture in your breath instantly freezes, forming ice crystals on your eyelashes and beard. If you leave your skin exposed to the air for even a few minutes, severe frostbite sets in, destroying tissue. Inhaling deeply can actually cause pain, as the freezing air damages the delicate lining of your lungs. Survival in Oymyakon requires constant grueling mechanical effort. The ground is permanently frozen, permafrost, meaning that digging a foundation for a building or even excavating a grave requires thawing the earth with blazing bonfires and breaking the rock-hard soil with jackhammers. Vehicles cannot be turned off outdoors. Engines are left running 24 hours a day, because if they are shut down, the lubricating oil and fuel freeze solid, destroying the engine block. Even simple tasks become impossible. Ink freezes in pens, batteries drain of power in minutes, and ordinary metal becomes brittle and shatters under stress. The diet relies heavily on raw frozen meat and fish, as the permafrost prevents any meaningful agriculture. Oymyakon is a brutal testament to human stubbornness, a place where daily life is an endless, exhausting battle simply to keep the blood flowing and the machines running in an environment actively trying to freeze everything to a standstill. Devil's Pool, Victoria Falls. From the paralyzing cold of Siberia, we move to a danger driven by sheer adrenaline and the power of gravity. High on the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe, the Zambezi River violently cascades over the edge of Victoria Falls, creating one of the largest and most spectacular waterfalls on the planet. Millions of gallons of water plunge over 300 feet into the gorge below, generating a deafening roar and a towering plume of mist. Yet perched exactly on the lip of this massive drop is the Devil's Pool, a natural rock basin where tourists willingly swim just inches from the fatal edge. The mechanism that allows this insane activity is a submerged lip of rock that forms a fragile natural barrier against the raging current. Access to the pool is only permitted during the dry season when the river's water levels drop, significantly reducing the strength of the current just enough to make the swim possible. Participants must wade through the flowing river and plunge into the pool, trusting that the hidden rock ledge will catch them before they are swept over the falls. The psychological tension is immense. You are submerged in rushing water, looking directly down a 300-foot vertical drop, knowing that if the water level were to suddenly rise, or if you were to slip past the rock barrier, there is absolutely nothing to stop a lethal freefall. The Devil's Pool represents a bizarre intersection of extreme natural geology and modern thrill-seeking, where individuals deliberately place themselves on the razor's edge of a catastrophic plunge. Saltstraumen Maelstrom, Norway. Next, we examine the terrifying power of compressed ocean dynamics. Located just outside the town of Bodo in northern Norway, the Saltstraumen Strait generates the strongest tidal current on Earth. This is not a serene open ocean. It is a violent churning bottleneck that behaves like a massive aquatic washing machine. Every 6 hours, the shifting tides force an unimaginable volume of seawater over 400 million cubic meters through a narrow channel that is only about 500 feet wide. This immense volume of water being squeezed through such a tight space accelerates the current to terrifying speeds, often exceeding 25 miles per hour. The resulting turbulence creates massive, powerful whirlpools or maelstroms that can measure up to 33 feet in diameter and plunge over 15 feet deep. These spinning vortices possess an incredibly strong downward suction. If a small boat or a diver miscalculates the timing of the tides and is caught in the current, when it reaches its maximum velocity, they can easily lose control, be pulled off course, and dragged violently beneath the surface. The danger is amplified by the fact that the water transitions from appearing deceptively calm at slack tide to a roaring, chaotic mess of spinning water in a matter of minutes. Navigating the Saltstraumen requires exact timing and a deep respect for the sheer crushing force of marine physics. It is a stark reminder that when millions of tons of ocean water are forced into a confined space, the resulting energy is highly destructive and entirely unpredictable. Abuna Yamatagu, Ethiopia. Moving from the crushing depths of the ocean, we ascend to a danger rooted in altitude and religious devotion. high in the Geralta Mountains of northern Ethiopia, carved directly into the side of a sheer sandstone pinnacle, is the ancient rock-hewn church of Abuna Yamatagu. Built in the 5th century, it is considered one of the most inaccessible and terrifying places of worship on the planet. To reach the church, visitors and local worshippers must endure a grueling and highly dangerous climb at an elevation exceeding 8,000 feet. There are no modern safety ropes, no harnesses, and no protective railings. The final ascent requires a vertical freehand climb up a smooth, nearly 90-degree rock face. Climbers must rely entirely on shallow, hand-carved footholds and handholds that have been worn smooth by centuries of use. The danger is absolute. You must perform this climb barefoot, gripping the sandstone while exposed to high winds and blinding sunlight. A single slip of your grip or loss of balance guarantees a fatal plunge of over 600 feet onto the jagged rocks below. Once past the vertical climb, you must navigate a narrow, unprotected ledge barely wide enough for 2 feet that hugs the cliff face before finally ducking into the dark entrance of the church. Inside, the walls are covered in remarkably preserved, vibrant frescoes dating back over 1,000 years. The church's extreme isolation has protected these artworks from looting and the elements. Abuna Yamatagu is a breathtaking intersection of extreme geology and unwavering faith, where the act of reaching the sanctuary demands a terrifying confrontation with your own mortality. Death Valley, USA. We now descend into a landscape that actively tries to bake the life out of anything that enters it. Death Valley, located in eastern California, is the hottest, driest, and lowest national park in the United States. While it may seem like a familiar, accessible location, its geography makes it a lethal natural oven. Much of the valley floor sits hundreds of feet below sea level, surrounded by steep, towering mountain ranges. This specific topography creates a highly effective heat trap. As the sun brutally bakes the valley floor, the heated air rises, but the surrounding mountains force it back down, compressing and superheating the air further. This cycle generates surface temperatures that regularly exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit during the summer months, with ground temperatures recorded even higher. The intense heat is accompanied by dangerously low humidity, meaning your sweat evaporates almost instantly, accelerating severe dehydration without you even realizing it. Driving through this vast, desolate basin is a serious risk. The long, remote stretches of asphalt can literally melt vehicle tires and push engines to catastrophic failure. Cell phone service is non-existent in many areas, and the distance between service stations can span dozens of miles. If your vehicle breaks down here, the situation escalates into a life-threatening emergency within hours. The intense radiating heat causes rapid heat exhaustion and heat stroke, leading to organ failure if water and shade are not immediately found. Death Valley is a visually stunning expanse of salt flats, sand dunes, and barren rock, but its severe climate demands meticulous preparation. It is a harsh reminder that even highly developed countries harbor environments where the sun and the terrain can quickly overwhelm human resilience. Shark Alley, South Africa. We leave the scorching desert heat and plunge into the freezing, turbulent waters off the coast of South Africa. Between Dyer Island and Geyser Rock lies a narrow channel of ocean, famously known as Shark Alley. This is not a scenic diving reef. It is the densest hunting ground for the apex predator of the sea, the great white shark. The channel is packed with tens of thousands of Cape Fur seals, providing a massive, highly concentrated food source. The cold, nutrient-rich Atlantic currents create perfect conditions for these massive sharks, which can grow to over 15 feet in length and weigh well over 2,000 pounds. They are highly evolved muscular hunters equipped with electroreceptors to sense the faint electrical fields of their prey. Their hunting technique here is brutally explosive. They launch themselves vertically from the dark depths at tremendous speeds, striking the seals with such force that they frequently breach entirely out of the water. For humans, entering these waters is only possible inside heavy steel cages. Even then, the experience is terrifying. The water visibility can be murky, and the sharks move with startling speed and silence. Being submerged in Shark Alley means placing yourself directly inside an active, violent feeding zone, separated from a set of razor-sharp, serrated jaws by only a few inches of welded metal. Passage de Goa, France. Next, we examine a route where the danger operates on a strict, unrelenting countdown. The Passage de Goa is a narrow 2.6-mile paved causeway in France that connects the mainland to the island of Noirmoutier. For a few hours each day, it appears as a standard, albeit slightly slippery coastal road. But this road hides a deadly schedule. Twice a day, the powerful tides of the Atlantic Ocean sweep in with shocking speed. The water does not rise slowly. It surges across the flats, completely submerging the entire roadway under more than 13 feet of seawater. The danger here is a matter of timing. You do not need to be a bad driver to face disaster. You only need to be late. If a driver miscalculates the tide schedule, or if their vehicle breaks down while crossing the rapidly rising ocean, will quickly engulf the car, sweeping it off the causeway and into the sea. The currents are deceptively strong, making escape difficult. The only line of defense for stranded travelers are a few elevated rescue towers built along the route. If you are caught by the tide, you must abandon your vehicle, climb the tower, and wait hours for the water to recede or for rescue to arrive. The Passage de Goa is an intense daily reminder that the ocean yields to no one's schedule. Khumbu Icefall, Everest. High on the slopes of Mount Everest, climbers must navigate an environment that is constantly actively trying to destroy them. The Khumbu Icefall is a moving, shifting river of deep, fractured ice located just above base camp at an elevation of nearly 18,000 feet. It is widely considered the most dangerous section of the entire ascent. The terrain here is terrifyingly unstable. The Khumbu Glacier moves down the steep mountain slope at a rate of several feet per day. This movement forces the massive ice field to crack and buckle, creating towering, jagged blocks of ice, known as seracs, some the size of 10-story apartment buildings. These colossal ice towers are highly unstable and can collapse without a moment's warning generating massive lethal avalanches of ice and snow. Climbers must traverse this chaotic maze using a fragile temporary route of thin aluminum ladders and nylon ropes painstakingly set up by experienced Sherpas. These ladders bridge gaping, bottomless crevasses that plunge hundreds of feet into the dark, freezing depths of the glacier. You must cross these ladders while wearing heavy crampons, balancing over the abyss as the thin air starves your brain and muscles of oxygen. The crossing is typically done in the dead of night or early morning before the rising sun warms the ice and increases the risk of catastrophic collapses. The psychological toll is immense. Every loud crack or groan from the shifting ice echoes through the valley, a constant reminder that you are walking through a frozen, collapsing trap where speed and luck are your only real defenses. Danakil Depression, Ethiopia. We transition from the crushing, shifting ice of Everest to a searing, toxic landscape that looks more like the surface of Venus than anywhere on Earth. The Danakil Depression in Ethiopia sits over 400 feet below sea level, located precisely where three massive tectonic plates are slowly ripping apart. The geological violence here is completely exposed. The environment is a hostile mix of extreme heat, highly active volcanism, and lethal chemistry. The average daily temperatures are punishing, making it one of the hottest places on the planet year-round. But the heat is only part of the threat. The landscape is dominated by glowing, active lava lakes that churn with molten rock at temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Surrounding these volcanoes are vast hydrothermal fields that bubble with boiling, highly acidic hot springs. These pools glow in unnatural, vibrant shades of neon green, yellow, and orange colored by heavy concentrations of sulfur iron and extremophile bacteria. The water in some of these pools has a pH level lower than battery acid. The air itself is dangerous. The active vents constantly spew thick, choking clouds of sulfur dioxide and other noxious volcanic gases. Breathing this air without a respirator can severely irritate and damage your lungs. The ground beneath your feet is a fragile, unstable crust of crystallized salt and minerals, hiding scalding toxic water just below the surface. The Danakil Depression is a brutal alien hellscape where intense heat, corrosive acid, and toxic air combine to create an environment aggressively hostile to all forms of life. Sundarbans, India, Bangladesh. Moving from the arid volcanic deserts, we enter the dense, suffocating humidity of the world's largest mangrove forest. The Sundarbans, spanning the delta region of India and Bangladesh, is a sprawling, muddy labyrinth of tidal waterways, thick mudflats, and impenetrable vegetation. It is a vital biodiverse ecosystem, but it is also one of the most perilous wilderness areas on Earth. There are no paved roads here. The only way to navigate is by small boat through the twisting, murky channels. The danger lurks both in the water and on the land. The rivers are heavily populated with massive, aggressive saltwater crocodiles that dominate the muddy banks. But the true apex predator of the Sundarbans is the Bengal tiger. This region holds one of the largest concentrations of wild tigers in the world. Unlike most tiger populations, these tigers are highly adapted to the aquatic environment. They are powerful swimmers, capable of silently crossing wide rivers to ambush fishermen right off their small boats. The dense mangrove roots and thick mud provide perfect camouflage, making them nearly invisible until they strike. Add to this the constant threat of highly venomous snakes and the frequent devastating cyclones that batter the coast, and the Sundarbans becomes a tense, unforgiving environment where human survival requires constant vigilance against an array of lethal predators. Snake Island, Ilha da Queimada Grande, Brazil. Now we reach locations where human presence is not just dangerous, but actively forbidden or physically impossible. Located about 90 miles off the coast of São Paulo, Brazil, is Ilha da Queimada Grande, universally known as Snake Island. This small, rocky, heavily forested island is so lethal that the Brazilian government has made it strictly illegal for anyone to step foot on it without high-level military or scientific clearance. The reason is simple and terrifying. The island is completely overrun by the golden lancehead pit viper, a highly venomous snake found nowhere else on Earth. Due to rising sea levels isolating the island thousands of years ago, these snakes evolved in an environment with no natural ground predators. To survive, their venom adapted to become extraordinarily potent, designed to instantly kill migrating birds before they could fly away. The concentration of snakes here is staggering. In some areas, researchers estimate there is up to one highly venomous snake for every square meter of land. They do not just slither on the ground. They drape themselves densely through the branches of the trees, positioned perfectly at head and neck height. The venom of the golden lancehead is fast-acting and horrific. It contains hemotoxins that aggressively attack red blood cells, causing severe internal bleeding, acute kidney failure, and literal necrosis, where the flesh around the bite melts away. There is no hospital on the island, and reaching the mainland for anti-venom takes hours, time you simply do not have after a bite. Snake Island is a rare patch of Earth completely conquered by a lethal predator, a forbidden zone where humans are effectively locked out by a wall of highly evolved venom. Lake Nyos, Cameroon. Our next destination proves that the most devastating threats do not always raw burn or bite. Sometimes they are completely silent and entirely invisible. Lake Nyos in Cameroon appears to be a tranquil, deep blue crater lake surrounded by lush green hills. But deep beneath its calm surface lies a deadly geological mechanism. The lake sits directly above an active volcanic system. Slowly over many years, massive quantities of carbon dioxide gas leak from the magma chamber below and dissolve into the cold, high-pressure waters at the very bottom of the lake. Because the lake is exceptionally deep and stagnant, this gas remains trapped in the lower layers, building up immense pressure like a shaken bottle of soda waiting to burst. In August 1986, that pressure was violently released. An unknown trigger, Perhaps a landslide or a small seismic tremor caused the deep, gas-saturated water to rapidly mix with the surface water. This triggered a catastrophic limnic eruption. The lake suddenly and violently expelled a massive dense cloud of highly concentrated carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Because carbon dioxide is heavier than air, the invisible odorless gas cloud did not dissipate into the sky. Instead, it hugged the ground, flowing silently and rapidly down the slopes of the volcano into the surrounding valleys and villages. As the gas displaced the oxygen, it suffocated everything in its path. In a single night, the silent cloud killed over 1,700 people and thousands of livestock as they slept. Lake Nyos is a chilling reminder that an environment can look perfectly serene while harboring a completely invisible, highly lethal force capable of wiping out all life in an instant. Lut Desert, Iran. We move from the invisible gas of Cameroon to an environment where the heat is so absolute it sterilizes the land. The Dashta Lut, or Lut Desert, in eastern Iran is a vast, desolate expanse of salt flats and towering wind-carved sand formations, known as yardangs. It holds the terrifying distinction of possessing the highest recorded land surface temperatures on the planet. NASA satellite measurements have documented the ground temperature here, reaching an astounding 177.4 degrees Fahrenheit, 80.8 degrees Celsius. This is heat so intense, it defies comprehension. At these temperatures, the ground is hot enough to warp tires and severely burn unprotected skin upon contact. The environment is so brutal and arid that even the most resilient bacteria and microorganisms struggle to survive, rendering large portions of the desert completely sterile. There is no water, no vegetation, and no cell phone signal. Driving into the interior of the Lut Desert is a massive risk. If a vehicle's engine overheats and fails, a common occurrence in this thermal extreme, the occupants are immediately subjected to rapid life-threatening dehydration and heat stroke. With no shade and no possibility of rescue, a breakdown here is a guaranteed death sentence. The Lut Desert is a landscape stripped of all biology, a vast baking furnace that forcefully rejects human presence. McMurdo Dry Valleys, Antarctica. When you imagine Antarctica, you picture endless blinding white ice and snow. But the McMurdo Dry Valleys present a far more alien and unsettling reality. Located in Victoria Land, this is a sprawling region of barren brown gravel-jagged rock and exposed dirt. It is one of the most extreme deserts on Earth, completely devoid of snow and ice cover. The physics driving this anomaly are brutal. The valleys are scoured by katabatic winds, heavy, cold air that violently rushes down from the high polar plateau. These winds can reach speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour. As the air falls, it heats up slightly and becomes aggressively dry, instantly evaporating any moisture, snow, or ice before it can settle on the ground. Geological evidence suggests that parts of these valleys have not seen rain or significant precipitation in over 2 million years. The result is a landscape that mimics the sterile, frozen surface of Mars. There is no visible life here, No plants, no insects, no animals. The extreme cold and absolute lack of moisture create a bizarre preservation effect. The mummified carcasses of seals that wandered off course and died thousands of years ago remain perfectly intact, scattered across the valley floor. They do not rot or decompose because the environment is too harsh for even the bacteria responsible for decay to survive. The McMurdo Dry Valleys are a stark, silent wasteland frozen in a perpetual state of barren emptiness. East Antarctic Plateau. For our final destination, we ascend to the ultimate extreme of our planet's climate. The East Antarctic Plateau is a vast, featureless expanse of high-altitude ice sitting thousands of feet above sea level. This is the undisputed coldest location on Earth, a place where temperatures drop to levels that challenge the very limits of physics and biology. Satellite data analyzing the high ridges of this plateau have recorded surface temperatures plunging to an incomprehensible minus 144 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 98 degrees Celsius. This is a level of cold that aggressively attacks human physiology. At these temperatures, the air is so sharply frigid that taking a deep breath of unprotected air will instantly freeze the moisture in your throat and lungs, causing severe, immediate tissue damage and internal hemorrhaging. Exposed skin freezes solid in seconds, and standard mechanical equipment becomes dangerously brittle and fails. The cold here is driven by the extreme altitude, the clear dry air, and the endless months of dark polar winter, which allow all heat to radiate directly out into space. The conditions are so consistently lethal that human beings have never established a permanent research station at the absolute coldest points. We only dare to measure these extremes remotely from satellites in orbit. We engineer incredible machines to drill through mountains. We build massive cities in the middle of scorching deserts, and we construct bridges over raging ocean currents. But the East Antarctic Plateau stands as the ultimate barrier. It is a vast, silent, freezing void that reminds us of one absolute, unyielding truth. Earth merely tolerates our existence. While we may feel we have conquered the globe, there are still corners of this world where the raw, elemental forces of nature dictate that we simply do not belong. Which of these extreme locations made your palms sweat the most? Could you navigate the terrifying drops of Mount Hua, or would you risk the freezing, silent void of the Antarctic Plateau? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you respect the raw, unforgiving power of nature and want to continue exploring the most impossible, dangerous, and awe-inspiring places our planet has to offer, hit that subscribe button. We will see you in the next impossible destination.